The case of Ruth Lauder is a chilling narrative that highlights the vulnerability of the elderly. Her kidnapping and murder at the hands of Louise Gilbert and Eric Elliott represents a wave of crimes. These crimes unfolded over a brief period, marking a tragedy for her community and the nation. The story begins in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio, where the frail Mrs. Lauder, 79 years old and battling cancer, lives alone. On the night of her abduction, her life, surrounded by family love, turns into a nightmare. When she hears noises in her kitchen, she assumes it is her granddaughter, but instead she encounters intruders. These intruders strip away her security and ultimately her life. Sheriff Walter Wilson and local authorities play a crucial role in the search for Lauder. The community rallies to help, forming a command center. They aim to locate her before her critical condition worsens. However, the initial search yields no results. A witness mentions seeing Lauder's car with a young man behind the wheel, marking the beginning of a lead. This lead will escalate into a larger tragedy. Shortly after, other incidents emerge, including the disappearance of a 16-year-old boy, Eric Elliott, in the same county where Lauder went missing. This raises alarms among authorities, who begin to wonder if there is a connection. The activation of the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, to track both cases highlights the magnitude of the problem. It suggests it could involve a serial criminal. The situation takes a tragic turn when in Missouri, Lauder's stolen car is discovered on a farm. The absence of her body in the trunk suggests she could be dead. Simultaneously, authorities find the bodies of an elderly couple murdered under similar circumstances to Lauder's. The police begin to realize that there may be a pattern of violence extending beyond Ohio. Louise Gilbert and Eric Elliott are not only suspects in Ruth's disappearance, but also in a double homicide. Officials work against the clock to gather evidence and apprehend the youths before they strike again. The search intensifies with the FBI's assistance, fearing that more innocents are at risk. The pattern of the criminals' chosen victims, elderly, defenseless individuals, reveals a horrifying trend. The lack of humanity demonstrated in their crimes is shocking, highlighting their ease in targeting vulnerable people. As the investigation progresses and a profile of the suspects emerges, it becomes clear capturing Gilbert and Elliott is necessary to halt their killing spree. The eventual arrest of these suspects in New Mexico concludes a multi-state pursuit. During interrogation, Gilbert begins to reveal details about his crime. His chilling account of how they approached, abducted, and murdered Lauder emphasizes the premeditated nature of their actions. The unsettling belief that they could dispose of lives so callously casts a shadow over human nature. The lack of closure for Lauder's family echoes the system's failure to protect its most vulnerable citizens. Gilbert's confession, which includes tying up his victim and shooting her, starkly illustrates the total dehumanization of Lauder. Authorities and the community grapple with the painful reality of losing Ruth Lauder. She was well known and beloved. Ultimately, the account of Ruth Lauder and the murders committed by Gilbert and Elliott serves as a stark reminder of life's fragility. It highlights the urgent need to protect the vulnerable. The actions of these young men left scars not only on their victims, but reverberated throughout society. This reminds us of the importance of empathy and safeguarding our elders. It is crucial when sharing these stories to foster a collective awareness that promotes safety and well-being for all. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video to continue sharing more stories and analyses.
A story of abduction and resilience. In spring 1998, Howard County, Indiana was struck by a horrifying crime when 21-year-old Anita Waldrich disappeared from her home. A day that began normally turned into a desperate search for a young woman whose abduction would shake the community. Anita was scheduled to have lunch with her grandparents and then work the afternoon shift at a shipping company. However, when her boyfriend arrived, he found her car missing and the house in disarray, with bloody stains in the kitchen. Panic set in, leading her mother to call 911. Detective Steve Rogers of the Howard County Sheriff's Department quickly arrived at the scene. The signs pointed to violence. The house had been broken into, and evidence suggested that something terrible had occurred. Time was of the essence, as every minute counted in the search for Anita. Investigators worked diligently, interviewing family and friends who described her as a responsible young woman, unlikely to leave without reason. As the investigation progressed, attention turned to Victor Steele, a man with a troubling past. Steele had a criminal record for sexual offenses and a previous kidnapping charge. Investigators learned he had recently moved to Wisconsin, raising concerns that he might be involved in Anita's abduction. The urgency to find any leads intensified as detectives retraced Anita's last known movements. Focusing on surveillance and community outreach, days turned into a week, and despite extensive searches and community support, hope began to dwindle. Yet, Detective Rogers and his team continued to believe that Anita was still alive. They monitored Steele's known locations and placed him under surveillance, hoping to gather evidence or leads on Anita's whereabouts. The break in the case came when Steele was stopped during a routine traffic stop. Authorities began questioning him about Anita, but he maintained that he knew nothing of her disappearance. This prompted investigators to obtain a search warrant for his residence. They hoped to find evidence tied to Anita's abduction. After gaining access to Steele's rental property, investigators discovered a locked cabinet secured with wooden panels. With great caution, they opened it, revealing that Anita was alive but in a state of shock after enduring 8 days in captivity. Her resilience over the ordeal was nothing short of remarkable. Showcasing her strength despite the trauma she had suffered, Anita relayed how Steele had attacked her, detailing the psychological manipulation he used to control her. Though she had faced unimaginable fear, her unwavering spirit brought her through the nightmare. After her rescue, Victor Steele was charged with multiple felonies, including kidnapping and sexual assault. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, ensuring he could no longer harm another victim. Anita's story, however, transcended just survival. With immense support from family and the community, she began a journey of healing and empowerment. She expressed a desire to become a police officer, driven by the ambition to protect others from similar fates. Ultimately, the case of Anita Waldrich not only highlights the importance of community involvement and vigilance in times of crisis, but also illustrates the power of resilience in the face of horror. By subscribing to our channel and liking this video, you can help raise awareness about the realities many victims face, emphasizing the necessity for continuous support in the fight against such crimes. Anita's journey is a poignant reminder that even in darkness, the human spirit can prevail. The phenomenon of violence has been present in various communities throughout history. In the case of Alabama, in the mid-1990s, the city of Birmingham was engulfed in a series of brutal assaults. These assaults not only shocked the population, but also challenged local authorities. These crimes were marked by a disturbing pattern that left a legacy of fear and frustration. Here we will analyze the crimes of that time, the response of the authorities, and the nature of the killers. On May 18, 1996, a gas station customer found the body of a cashier who had been murdered in cold blood. The initial investigation pointed to a robbery, but the money remained on the premises, indicating that it had not been the primary motive for the crime. This senseless murder raised questions. Why would someone kill an employee who was simply doing their job? The answer became even more complicated when, 2 months later, another assault, this time on a pawn shop, left 2 fatalities. The connection between both crimes revealed the existence of an extremely dangerous modus operandi. Surveillance recordings became a crucial element in the investigation. Despite the poor quality of the footage, investigators refused to give up. The work of technicians to enhance the images became vital, as it allowed them to identify behavioral patterns of the criminals. This technical approach propelled the case forward, although it also highlighted law enforcement's frustration at not having concrete leads. The investigation revealed that the perpetrators, Marcus Presley and Samuel Gamble, were connected to a third accomplice, Stephen McKenzie. Through various collaborative efforts between local police and the FBI, searches intensified to locate them. However, the task was not straightforward. The erratic nature of the criminals and their willingness to use violence complicated the tracking efforts. Over time, it became clear that these individuals were not only dangerous, but also heavily armed. Authorities were aware that time was a critical factor. Every moment that passed increased the likelihood of more innocent people being injured or killed. Eventually, Mackenzie's capture in Boston led to a series of legal developments that became increasingly exhausting. During the trials, the evidence provided by the security recordings proved devastating for the defendants. The testimonies and visual evidence combined revealed a heartbreaking story of violence and crime. The trials resulted in severe sentences. Presley received the death penalty for his crimes, while others also faced harsh sentences. The jury's reaction to the footage reflected the brutal nature of the acts committed. Those images were not mere spectacle, but a testament to human horror in its rawest form. The series of killers that terrorized Alabama is a chilling example of how violence can unexpectedly arise in seemingly safe environments. The combination of technology and the perseverance of law enforcement played a crucial role in solving the case, but not without a heavy human cost. The community was marked by loss and fear, and the echoes of those crimes still resonate in the collective memory. This analysis underscores the importance of vigilance, interagency collaboration, and the need to understand the psychology behind such criminal acts to prevent future incidents of violence. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like on the video. Your support is essential to continue sharing investigations that illuminate these dark topics. The phenomenon of armored vehicle robberies has always been a fascinating topic. This account focuses on a dangerous gang of thieves who, with almost military precision, carried out 2 of the most impactful heists in Massachusetts. The first robbery occurred on December 22, 1987, in Weymouth, where a group of perfectly trained criminals managed to make off with more than $1 million in just a few minutes. At 8:30 in the morning, just before the bank opened, the criminals arrived at the scene. Armed and organized, they initiated the assault at the signal from their timer, calmly and efficiently controlling the situation. However, they left behind several bags of money, perplexing the authorities. Police and FBI agents quickly arrived at the scene, but the meticulousness of the robbers left few clues. The getaway vehicle was found burned, complicating the collection of evidence. They wore masks and gloves, allowing them to execute the heist without leaving traces. Investigators were impressed by their professionalism and the planning behind the assault. There were no witnesses to identify the criminals, and the only clue left behind was the lost money they chose to abandon. The initial success of the gang raised fears among authorities that they would strike again. The similarities between the Weymouth robbery and previous crimes drew the FBI's attention. Indeed, a second robbery occurred on May 31, 1989, where the robbers, now more violent, shot a security guard and made off with over $800,000. Both heists revealed a pattern. The robbers were increasingly willing to use violence, and the risks associated with their operations escalated. This last robbery left more evidence than the previous one. A stolen vehicle used in the crime was discovered. Investigators, facing a lack of information, sought to involve criminal informants who could shed light on the case. After months of surveillance, the FBI set a trap. They learned that the robbers planned to hit a bank in Hadleyton and decided to intervene, making them believe that a large sum of money would be available. On January 9, 1991, the thieves were captured while attempting to execute their plan. Many of the suspects were convicted, including the leaders of the group, who faced significant prison sentences. An informant, risking his life, provided crucial information to dismantle the gang, playing a pivotal role in bringing the criminal operation to its knees. This account highlights the complexities of investigating armored vehicle robberies and the dangers of criminal life. The skills of these thieves reveal the ongoing struggle between crime and law enforcement. Additionally, the episodes of violence accompanying these heists serve as a wake-up call regarding the aggressive and ruthless nature of such actions, and the stark realities faced by those in law enforcement risking their lives daily. In the end, although the thieves were caught, the cost of their criminal lifestyle was high. The story of these heists is a reminder of the impact of criminal decisions and the relentless effort of law enforcement to restore justice. The lives affected by violence and crime were countless, and the aftermath left emotional scars. For those who wish to continue exploring this fascinating world of crime and police work, don't forget to subscribe and like the video to receive more similar content. The intrigue of these types of crimes continues to capture many people's attention, revealing not only the thrill of the chase, but also the moral dilemmas faced by society. In context of Florida in the late 1980s, cocaine imports had begun to reach alarming levels, turning some regions into scenes of violence, intimidation, and death, all orchestrated by an unyielding drug dealer. This dealer did not hesitate to challenge the law. Desperate for a solution, law enforcement turned to the FBI, marking the beginning of an investigation that would become a puzzle of clues and buried secrets. On July 18, 1987, in a quiet coastal town, a celebration turned into tragedy when gunshots shattered the night and a man was found dead. The clues pointed to Jeff Saganek, a significant figure in the local drug trade. Tension mounted as his girlfriend suggested to the authorities that her partner had incurred dangerous debts with the trafficker, known for his brutality. Detectives began reaching out to figures from the music scene. Locals confirmed the dark rumors about Jeff. With a mix of contradictory testimonies and suspicions, they started to piece together a portrait of his dangerous criminal network, although concrete evidence remained elusive. Despite the changing tides, the story grew grim. A year later, more lives would be lost in the dark game of drug trafficking. In the summer of 1988, a witness who had stayed in the shadows revealed shocking details. This witness pointed to Jeff's ex-boyfriend as the killer, but the shadows were fearful, and the truth was evasive. Multiple deaths piled up as the struggle for justice intertwined with the violence of the drug trade world. The course of the investigation turned dramatic with the discovery of bodies and increasingly disturbing clues. In an attempt to connect the dots, the homicide detective formed alliances with narcotics and the DEA. As the tide of evidence became insurmountable, Stephen Franken, a key witness, also mysteriously met his end in a series of events resonating with the fatality of old debts and unmet agreements. With the task of capturing the elusive drug dealer becoming ever more urgent, the FBI and DEA intensified their efforts. A series of undercover operations revealed a criminal machine operating from a local pizzeria. The clues pointed toward a dark secret, but there was no magic that could unravel the veil of silence surrounding Jeff. The tense pursuit reached a boiling point with a series of explosions. These explosions sent a message of war, not only to his competitors, but also to the authorities attempting to dismantle his empire. On the night of March 16, 1990, the DEA building was targeted in an unprecedented bombing. The violence had reached a new dimension, prompting a renewed effort for capture. Finally, in April 1990, agents were able to track Jeff, but the fall was not easy. Every move that heightened the temptation of freedom was frustrated by his cunning and caustic violence. However, after months of sleepless nights and intelligent tactics, the focus on him became unrelenting. Ultimately, after what seemed like an endless pursuit, Jeff Matthews was arrested. But his capture was only the beginning of an even more unsettling display in a trial that revealed the magnitude of his tyranny. Facing multiple deaths, Matthews not only confronted a judicial outlook, but also faced off against his own shadow, that of the man who had made fear his most powerful weapon. Upon being sentenced to 100 years in prison, freedom would become nothing more than a vestige of a past filled with terror. Jeffrey Matthews went to prison, a place where the echoes of his crimes would resonate forever. This left his victims and a community marked by the trauma of his actions. The cycle of violence had been halted, albeit only in appearance. After this chilling account of events, we invite you to subscribe and give us your like. Encourage them to explore more about this dark chapter in history. The Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 is one of the most intriguing and perplexing mysteries of modern aviation, an enigma that captured global attention from the moment it vanished on March 8, 2014. With 239 people on board, this Boeing 777 took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, bound for Beijing, China, but never reached its destination. From that point, the narrative thickens into a whirlwind of speculation, theories, and failed searches that continue to this day. Shortly after takeoff, air traffic controllers lost contact with the plane. The aircraft had been flying normally, but at 1:21 a.m., the last message from the cockpit indicated that the flight was proceeding well. At that moment, it was believed that the plane would follow its course and land in Beijing. However, at 1:30 a.m., Malaysian radar lost track of MH370 as the plane mysteriously changed direction. With no alert or emergency signal, the disappearance was total. The first major twist in the mystery came when it was revealed that the plane had changed course, flying west instead of continuing on its initial route. Investigators discovered that the aircraft's communication system had been turned off in the last hours of the flight, and by examining satellite data, it was determined that MH370 had headed toward the Indian Ocean. This triggered a vast search and rescue operation in one of the most remote areas of the ocean. For weeks, authorities deployed significant resources in a search, covering thousands of square kilometers of ocean, using boats, submarines, and planes to try to locate the aircraft or any trace of it. Despite these monumental efforts, the initial search yielded no success. These early disappointments plunged the community into a state of anxiety and confusion as the families of the passengers awaited answers that never arrived. As the investigation progressed, a multitude of theories emerged, some more plausible than others. From terrorism conspiracies to assumptions about hijackers, the possibilities seemed endless. At the same time, the possibility that the pilot, Zahari Ahmad Shah, may have taken control of the aircraft for an intentional act of suicide was explored. Aviation experts began speculating about the idea of a ghost flight in which the plane would continue flying without any intervention until running out of fuel. Finally, after years of investigations and searches, some fragments of the aircraft were discovered on Réunion Island and other locations along the coasts of the Indian Ocean. This suggested that indeed MH370 had sunk in those waters. However, despite the physical findings, neither the black box nor the passengers' bodies have been recovered, making answers about the cause of the disappearance elusive. The tragedy of flight MH370 has transformed into a symbol of the mystery and uncertainty that surround aviation. The lack of clear answers has profoundly impacted the families of the victims, who have since fought for the truth behind the disappearance of their loved ones. Today, the search for MH370 is considered one of the largest unresolved adventures in the world, a case that remains the subject of study and speculation worldwide. Flight MH370 has left its mark on history, not only as a reminder of the fragility of life, but also of the need to improve safety and communication in aviation. Meanwhile, the ocean keeps the secrets of its fate, fueling the mystery that will continue to intrigue future generations. What really happened that fateful night? As the story of MH370 unfolds, the desire to find answers, to heal, and to close the chapter becomes a constant struggle for those still hoping to know the truth. Subscribe and leave us your like to continue exploring more mysteries like that of Flight MH370. In the dark world of crime, bank robberies are often filled with action and tension, but the case of Robin, a robber who terrorized Albuquerque, New Mexico, stands out as particularly unsettling. It all began on December 29, 1998, when a typical day at a local bank turned into the scene of a violent heist. Robin, an ordinary-looking man, approached the teller with a gun, demanding cash. He left behind a package of dye explosives designed to mark the stolen money. Thus began a series of heists that would keep the police and FBI on high alert for months. Rumors spread rapidly, and alarms were sent to both local authorities and the FBI. At first glance, it seemed like an ordinary robbery, but it soon became clear that Robin was an unusual thief. Investigating agents found that there were no screams or gunfire. Many customers didn't even realize they were being robbed. Robin was clever and meticulously planned each move. This made identification exceedingly difficult. Over several months in 1999, Robin repeated his modus operandi across multiple banks in Albuquerque, successfully completing numerous heists. He did this in a single day while displaying ever-increasing aggression. As time went on, the violence escalated. He began to physically threaten employees and grew bolder in his actions. Reports indicated that he might have been under the influence of drugs, which exacerbated his erratic and dangerous behavior. The FBI utilized the media to encourage public vigilance. Despite receiving numerous tips and potential sightings, the robber always managed to escape authorities. With each new heist, Robin's notoriety grew, making it increasingly challenging for law enforcement. Hope finally emerged in August 1999 when Carlita, the ex-wife of Byron, the prime suspect, came forward with vital information. She revealed that her ex-husband was the thief they were hunting. This confirmed suspicions. Byron had a violent past and a notorious reputation, attracting the attention of investigators. However, when agents arrived at Carlita's apartment, an intense shootout ensued. This allowed Byron to escape yet again, prompting a massive mobilization of law enforcement. After hours of fruitless searching, investigators began tracking local gang members who might be protecting Byron. One informant bravely risked his life, recording conversations that provided critical leads for the capture of the robber. This strategy paid off, and after a series of coordinated operations, Byron was finally located. Tension mounted as his arrest was confirmed, and despite the pressure from law enforcement, Byron showed no signs of surrendering. He was sentenced to 40 years in prison. However, the story of Robin did not end there. He executed a daring escape and once again plunged into the darkness of crime, causing further chaos with his continued robberies. Ultimately, thanks to a substantial law enforcement effort, he was captured once more. However, this time, his violent actions led to an additional 40-year sentence, compounding the original punishment. This chilling account of the bank robber Robin serves as a stark reminder that crime has devastating consequences. It also underscores the importance of collaboration between law enforcement and the community to eliminate crime effectively. If you enjoyed this video and want to support our work, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. Staying vigilant and informed can help reduce criminal activity in our neighborhoods. So be sure to participate and share this story with others. Your engagement can make a tremendous difference in spreading awareness and supporting efforts towards safety and justice. The mysterious case of Mauricio Leal and his mother. In a striking, newly surfaced material, an unprecedented video has once again grabbed global attention. Due to its connection with the tragic case of Colombian hairstylist Mauricio Leal and his mother, Marlene Hernandez. The footage, revealed by Noticias Caracol on August 11, 2024, shows Leal's final moments, appearing weak and blood-stained on a bed beside his mother, in alarming conditions suggesting a fatal outcome. In this video, we will delve into all the details surrounding this chilling story, from the beginning to the revelation of the video. Born in 1974 in Colombia, Mauricio endured a challenging childhood, marked by his parents' separation, ultimately making his mark in the hairstyling world by achieving great fame and success. Over his career, he attended to many celebrities and opened salons in various cities, establishing himself as a cornerstone in his field. Concurrently, he maintained a very close relationship with his mother, whom he ensured lived comfortably in a luxurious residence in Bogotá. Mauricio's friends described him as a generous and dedicated individual, always ready to help others. However, everything changed on November 22, 2021, when Mauricio sent a message to his driver, indicating that the housemaid would not be needed that day. This unusual behavior alarmed friends and family, as Mauricio was known for his dedication and responsibility at work. Concern for his well-being quickly grew among his loved ones, who tried to contact him but received no response. In the days that followed, tragedy struck. Mauricio and Marlene's bodies were found in their home, showing signs of a violent attack. The police initially suspected a double murder, followed by Mauricio's suicide, supporting this theory with a letter supposedly left by him. However, friends and family refused to accept this narrative, arguing that the bond between them was too strong for such an ending to occur. Comments from those who knew him suggested that such a crime was inconceivable, given the ties of support and love they shared. The truth began to unfold when investigations took a new turn, concluding it was a double homicide. With testimonies and evidence in hand, authorities started pointing to Jonier, Mauricio's brother, who had motives and opportunities to commit the crime. Jonier's envy and financial problems, along with inconsistencies in his version of events, placed him in a suspicious position, casting doubt on his innocence. Finally, in January 2022, Jonier was arrested and charged with the murders, although he maintained his innocence. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming. In February 2024, he was found guilty of murdering his mother and brother and sentenced to 55 years in prison, practically a life sentence given his age. With the recent revelation of the video, which adds a new twist to this complex case, many wonder if this evidence will change anything or merely serve as another layer in an already devastating narrative. The police and the prosecution are probing the video for more clarity, but can it truly alter the perception of Jonier and his guilt? It is vital to closely follow the case's evolution, which, although believed to be closed, continues to generate controversy and suspense in the public eye. The Virginia Bailey case began when her friend and financial advisor, Christine Lloyd, was in charge of her house while she was in San Francisco. Christine had been an important figure in Virginia's life, but their relationship turned dark when a fierce fire ravaged Virginia's home, revealing a sinister secret. Following the fire, investigators discovered that Virginia had been murdered days before the incident, triggering a complex investigation into her death and Christine's involvement. Inspector Allbears, in charge of the case, arrived at the fire scene and, after an initial analysis, began to suspect that it had not been a simple accident. The autopsy revealed that Virginia had been dead for at least 3 days before the fire, framing the crime as a meticulously planned murder. Additionally, the presence of larvae in the body indicated that the death had occurred well before. The combustion patterns in Virginia's home did not align with an accidental fire, leading investigators to believe that the blaze was intentionally set to cover up the crime. Christine, after the fire, claimed she had returned to salvage Virginia's belongings, but her actions and statements raised suspicions. During the investigation, irregularities were discovered in the rental unit of Virginia's home, including an unusually maintained refrigerator, and the disconnection of the smoke detector, which pointed to a possible attempt to stage the crime scene. Inspector Bears and his team decided to dig deeper into Christine's background, as she was the only person with access to the house and the apparent sole beneficiary of Virginia's finances. As the investigations progressed, disturbing details about Virginia's finances emerged from her bank accounts. It was found that Christine had been diverting substantial sums of money from Virginia's account, an embezzlement scheme that included checks cashed from an account of a woman named Mercy Lloyd, who turned out to be her deceased mother. Through financial records, Inspector Bears began to piece together the criminal puzzle. Moreover, police discovered that Mercy Lloyd's death had been classified as accidental, despite the circumstances surrounding her passing. This connection led investigators to question whether the two crimes were linked, and if Christine was responsible not only for Virginia's murder, but also for her mother's death. Re-examinations of forensic evidence and handwriting analysis linking Christine to fraudulent behavior positioned her as the prime suspect for prosecution. Ultimately, after a year of investigation, the evidence was sufficient to bring Christine to court. Her refusal to speak with detectives and her attempts to deflect attention only fueled further doubts about her actions. In July 1995, she was arrested again, and after a prolonged wait, her trial took place, marking a turning point in an arduous journey for justice. The prosecution's case relied heavily on forensic evidence, which painted a clear picture of premeditation and sinister intent. Compelling testimonies also highlighted the financial motives behind the murders, leading to an emotional closing argument. Christine Lloyd was ultimately convicted for first-degree murder of Virginia and Mercy, receiving 2 consecutive life sentences, a fitting punishment for her calculated crimes of avarice and treachery. This case highlighted the risks represented by friendships when greed and desperation take hold. At the same time, it illustrated the importance of the work done by investigators and forensic experts who remain steadfast in their pursuit of justice. The story of Virginia and Mercy serves as a chilling reminder that deception and betrayal can often be closer than we imagine. If you found this narrative valuable, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like on the video. What began as a quiet September afternoon in 1984 turned into a tragedy that shook the peace of a tranquil neighborhood in Tucson, Arizona. Vicki Lynn Hoskinson, an 8-year-old girl, had set out with the innocent task of sending a birthday card to her aunt. Few could have anticipated the events that would follow, leaving an indelible mark on the community and its justice systems. At 3 p.m., Vicki rode off on her pink bike, excited about her first responsibility alone. However, when her sister Stephanie returned home earlier than expected, Vicki had not yet come back. Alarm bells went off when Stephanie found Vicki's abandoned bicycle on the side of the road. The bike was her prized possession, and leaving it behind made no sense, generating a wave of concern among her family and neighbors. The neighborhood soon transformed into the epicenter of an intense search. Local authorities and the FBI quickly became involved, aware that time was crucial in cases of missing children. Neighborhood witnesses reported seeing a dark car, a black Monte Carlo with California plates, lingering in the area. Additionally, a small child claimed to have seen a big girl get out of a car after it hit Vicki's bike, taking the girl away with her. The investigations led to Frank Jarvis Atwood, a man with a troubling criminal history, including child molestation. The car he was driving matched the descriptions provided by witnesses, and forensic evidence revealed that the paint from Vicki's bike was found on its bumper. Despite the circumstantial evidence, a crucial element was missing: Vicki's body. 3 weeks later, authorities arrested Atwood on charges of kidnapping. The community, outraged by the disappearance of one of its young members, united in protests demanding justice and stricter laws against sex offenders. Meanwhile, investigators continued searching for Vicki's body, aware that finding it was key to securing a murder conviction. Finally, in April 1985, a woman walking her dog in the desert found small human remains. Analysis confirmed they belonged to Vicki. The discovery allowed prosecutors to bring murder charges against Atwood. 2 years later, in a trial that captured national attention, Atwood was found guilty and sentenced to death. Vicki Hoskinson's shocking case led to legislative changes in Arizona and served as a catalyst for activism in favor of child protection. Her mother, devastated yet determined, channeled her grief into positive change, ensuring that Vicki's memory would be a beacon for social improvement. This tragic crime not only highlighted communities' vulnerabilities to child abuse, but also demonstrated the power of a united community in seeking justice. Despite the time that has passed, the smell of the air in September and the sound of helicopters that participated in the search remain vivid memories for those who experienced those days. Her legacy is a more vigilant community and stricter laws, reminding us all of the importance of protecting the most vulnerable among us. If this story moved you, consider subscribing and leaving your like to support us in spreading this type of content. The case of Carly Grett immerses us in a complex scenario where mental health, family dynamics, and juvenile criminal justice intersect. In March 2024, at the age of 14, Carly was accused of a shocking crime. She murdered her mother, Ashley Smeel, and shot her stepfather, Hit Smeel. These events sparked a profound discussion on how our society handles such situations, especially when minors are involved. On the night of the crime, a desperate 911 call from Hit Smeel revealed the severity of the situation. He reported that his stepdaughter had shot him and that his wife lay dead. Security camera recordings in the house provided clarity, showing that Carly had planned the attack, discarding the initial idea of an intruder. Carly's life was fraught with complications. School problems, marijuana use, and self-harm were significant issues. These factors, combined with a tense family structure, created a breeding ground for disaster. Ashley had discovered her daughter's secret life, leading to a conflict that culminated in tragedy. The defense pointed out that Carly's mental issues might be hereditary. They traced back to her biological father, who had his own mental health struggles. During the trial, the prosecution presented her as a calculating young woman. They relied on evidence like her personal diary, which contained disturbing statements about good and evil. This contrasted with the defense's portrayal of her as a young girl trapped in a mental health crisis. The defense argued that her crisis was exacerbated by psychotropic medications, Psychiatrists testified about how her medications might have affected her perception and behavior. However, the prosecution insisted on her conscious guilt. The court faced the challenge in balancing the law with compassion for a troubled young woman. Images of Carly laughing during the trial didn't help her case, perceived as a lack of remorse and cementing the jury's view of premeditated malice. The fact that the jury took only 2 hours to declare her guilty shows the strength of the evidence presented against her. Carly's sentence to life without parole is unusual for teenagers, sparking intense debates about juvenile justice and the treatment of mental illnesses within the legal system. The case reflects the urgent need for justice systems to adequately integrate mental health evaluation and rehabilitation programs into judicial proceedings. Carly Gret's story highlights the challenges we face as a society in handling mental health and justice. It underscores the importance of early intervention and strong family support. A holistic approach to addressing problematic juvenile behavior is essential. This case serves as a call to evaluate how our institutions can prevent other youths from falling into similar spirals. These spirals could lead to avoidable tragedies. As we reflect on the case, it is crucial to consider how we can improve support systems for at-risk youth. We must ensure that warning signs are not overlooked and that appropriate help is prioritized over punishment. Carly Gret becomes a reminder of the fine line between youth and criminal responsibility. There is a need for a system that seeks well-being and rehabilitation over mere punishment. The Alton Coleman and Deborah Brown is one of the most disturbing and chilling examples of serial crime in American history. Their violent odyssey of murders and kidnappings spans several states, generating deep anguish and fear in the affected communities. Starting in May 1984 with the disappearance of young Bernita Witt, FBI agents faced a complex maze of clues, unsettling testimonies, and the constant pressure to apprehend the fugitives before they caused further havoc. As the investigation unfolded, a clear profile of Alton Coleman emerged. He was a complicated criminal with a history of sexual assault and a disturbing ability to seduce and deceive his victims. From the outset, investigators knew time was of the essence. Bernita had been last seen in the barrack company of Coleman, making her capture a top priority. However, the social context and the state of technology at that time further complicated the search for the suspects. The violent nature of their crimes escalated quickly. With his girlfriend Deborah Brown by his side, Coleman demonstrated a chilling ability to move from state to state, leaving a trail of terror and bodies in his wake. Accounts of their attacks, which included both children and adults, culminated in the discovery of multiple corpses, showcasing not only their brutality, but also their capacity to blend into society. The pressure to capture them intensified when media attention was leveraged by the FBI, allowing for a coordinated approach between different jurisdictions. The collaboration among officers from various localities proved crucial in piecing together this macabre puzzle. Through a vigorous search campaign, tips began to trickle in, and slowly the noose tightened around Coleman and Brown. Finally, after weeks of terror, the fugitives were arrested. The evidence against them was overwhelming. Multiple charges of homicide, kidnapping, and assaults, linked to the horrific crimes they had committed, including the murder of Bernita and other innocents. Justice was served, although many wondered what could have been done to prevent these atrocities from occurring. Coleman's trial revealed not only his monstrosity as a criminal, but also how his life had been marked by violence, a violence that manifested in his interactions with innocent women and children. In the end, justice was delivered, but the shadow of his crimes remained etched in the memory of survivors and the families of the victims. The story of Alton Coleman and Deborah Brown serves as a chilling reminder of how far human evil can go. It also highlights the importance of law enforcement cooperation and the need for a quick response in cases of disappearances. Despite their capture, the legacy of their violence lingers, reminding us to always pay attention to warning signs in our community. For those who wish to continue exploring this case and others like it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like to support the content. What strategies do you think could be implemented today to detect and prevent crimes of this nature?
In the 1990s, Seattle was besieged by a series of bank heists that left both authorities and the local community on edge. At the heart of this criminal whirlwind was Hollywood, a masked robber. He took the cat-and-mouse game with law enforcement to another level. This master of disguise, known for his ability to transform and evade police, committed 14 bank robberies. He amassed a haul of over $1.2 million before facing his final big challenge. Hollywood's heists were bold and meticulously planned, from the use of theatrical disguises to complex strategies. These strategies aimed at distracting authorities. Each assault was a masterpiece of deception and precision. Agents on the case were consistently baffled by Hollywood's ability to vanish. He vanished without a trace after each robbery. This audacious figure moved with an almost ghostly fluidity, leaving behind a trail of vague and perplexing clues. He defied logic with each new crime. Throughout his criminal career, Hollywood proved to be a formidable adversary. Law enforcement, stalled by the lack of significant leads, made the decision. They organized a multifaceted task force in hopes of catching the thief in the act. Psychological profiling suggested that the perpetrator might be someone with prior weapons handling experience. Perhaps even an ex-police officer, given his methods and knowledge of security procedures. With each robbery, the essence of Hollywood became more enigmatic. He changed disguises with disconcerting ease, and although he was always armed, there was no known case of him firing a shot, which added to his mystique. This behavior pattern posed a challenge to authorities who speculated about his true motivations. When the FBI finally cornered his accomplices, it was revealed that behind the sophisticated criminal facade was a local actor who, under pressure, could not withstand the coordinated operation of law enforcement. However, Hollywood, true to his style, did not surrender. He did not surrender without one last dramatic act. Hollywood's accomplices, arrested after a shootout during their escape, provided valuable yet non-decisive clues regarding his whereabouts. These situations added more tension to the case, raising concerns not only about the eventual capture of the robber, but also about the safety of involved agents and the public. Despite being cornered, the man behind the mask exploited every gap of disarray to play his best role, the elusive bandit dodging traps and fueling the legend. The culmination of this pursuit arrived in a trailer where Hollywood hid, opting to face his fate, knowing that the weight of his actions and the mantle of his reputation had reached an inevitable conclusion. His ending left an open question about the limits of human ambition and the fine line between reality and theatrical performance when crime dons a mask. How far are we willing to go to hide who we truly are? If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe for more intriguing content.
The case of Ruth Lauder is a chilling narrative that highlights the vulnerability of the elderly. Her kidnapping and murder at the hands of Louise Gilbert and Eric Elliott represents a wave of crimes. These crimes unfolded over a brief period, marking a tragedy for her community and the nation. The story begins in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio, where the frail Mrs. Lauder, 79 years old and battling cancer, lives alone. On the night of her abduction, her life, surrounded by family love, turns into a nightmare. When she hears noises in her kitchen, she assumes it is her granddaughter, but instead she encounters intruders. These intruders strip away her security and ultimately her life. Sheriff Walter Wilson and local authorities play a crucial role in the search for Lauder. The community rallies to help, forming a command center. They aim to locate her before her critical condition worsens. However, the initial search yields no results. A witness mentions seeing Lauder's car with a young man behind the wheel, marking the beginning of a lead. This lead will escalate into a larger tragedy. Shortly after, other incidents emerge, including the disappearance of a 16-year-old boy, Eric Elliott, in the same county where Lauder went missing. This raises alarms among authorities, who begin to wonder if there is a connection. The activation of the National Crime Information Center, NCIC, to track both cases highlights the magnitude of the problem. It suggests it could involve a serial criminal. The situation takes a tragic turn when in Missouri, Lauder's stolen car is discovered on a farm. The absence of her body in the trunk suggests she could be dead. Simultaneously, authorities find the bodies of an elderly couple murdered under similar circumstances to Lauder's. The police begin to realize that there may be a pattern of violence extending beyond Ohio. Louise Gilbert and Eric Elliott are not only suspects in Ruth's disappearance, but also in a double homicide. Officials work against the clock to gather evidence and apprehend the youths before they strike again. The search